the internet which you use daily, the internet which affects your life to such a great extent. Yes, you can attribute the very existence of the World Wide Web to open source. Thereby, I hope that through the course of this video, we can start convincing you that how open source changed the world. Tag along with me. Hello everyone, I am Mohit Agarwal, a senior member of the GNU Linux Users Group, NIT Durgapur. Well, to give you a brief insight into our club, we are the official open source and technical society of our college, with the aim to promote FOSS and the great inventions of technology, not just in our college but beyond. Well, this pandemic has been a blessing in disguise, as we have used this opportunity to come to this wonderful platform of YouTube to share the content that we have, the community that we seek to create through this platform to reach a national and international audience. So do check out our channel for informative videos on technology, videos exploring open source and its vastness. And if you do find this video insightful, do like it and subscribe to our channel. Well, the purpose of this video is to start a new series which we will be launching on YouTube, How Open Source Changed the World. The purpose why we want to start this particular endeavor is because people have a misconception about open source, especially people studying in technical colleges like ours today. People think that open source is just about GSOC, open source is just about doing some web development, app development, having a project on your CV and then going to a company for your internships and placements. Well, we are not saying those are not important. But it is an insult to open source if you limit it just to a project in your CV. And therefore, to give you guys an insight of how huge it is, we come up with our very first video of this series, the World Wide Web, what you call as the internet. The internet which you use daily, the internet which affects your life to such a great extent. Yes, you can attribute the very existence of the World Wide Web to open source. Thereby, I hope that through the course of this video, we can start convincing you that how open source changed the world. While talking about how open source changed the world, since it's our very first video, it's very important for us to understand what open source exactly is and why is it so important. Why do we take so much of an effort to make you guys realize how it is important to the world? Well, for those who know what open source already is, before moving along, do write your answer in the comment section. Well, for those who don't, open source is really a very simple thing to understand. Let's have an insight. Okay, anything that can be used by everyone freely is open source. Well, the key terms in this definition of open source are anything, everyone, and freely. And let us break down all these terms to understand what it really means. Anything. Whenever you use a open source software or you use anything open source, let us consider a very local example. For example, an open source restaurant. Let's take an analogy of a restaurant. Anything. So if a restaurant is open source, you can go and eat anything there. You will not be forced to just choose from a set of dishes. In fact, you can choose to order anything you want to. For example, you could actually choose to have pizzas with any toppings including pineapple for people who don't like them or do like them, along with some other weird toppings. Everyone. An open source community accepts everyone. There is no partiality, there is no entrance exams, nothing of that sort. So if you are an open source enthusiast, all you need to do is have the will to go there. No one will deny you entry into a community, no one will stop you from using something which is open source. It is available for all. Freely. Now this freely has two definitions. One, you do not have to spend any money. Well, don't we all love when you get things for free in the supermarket, right? We just tend to look for those offers where it's 1 on 1 free or 2 on 2 free or perhaps everything free. Open source is completely free to use. If you're using open source software, open source operating systems, Unix, Linux based kernels, you do not have to spend a penny. Another deeper definition of this freely is freedom. Well, we here in India, consider Mahatma Gandhi to be one of the greatest freedom fighters because he helped us escape the jaws of the British colonizers. Well, today, when we sit in a world where everything around us is so much inclined to take away our privacy, don't we need that freedom to do whatever we want to? Today, there was an entire controversy these days regarding WhatsApp updating its privacy policies. There have been so many controversies regarding different, corporates trying to take away your privacy. And this is something which open source seeks to prevent in the very first place, a violation of your privacy. So, this freely gives you freedom. If you use open source software, you use anything open source. If you go and eat at an open source restaurant, you can choose what you want to do. Anyone can go in there and then do whatever they want to do with it. They can alter a recipe, they know what is happening, everything is transparent, and no one is judging them for what they eat, and neither is charging them. Wonderful restaurant, isn't it? This is what open source software is also all about. Open source essentially isn't a software or a restaurant, it is a concept. The concept of freedom, the concept of inclusiveness, the concept of community. So you could ask certain questions like, can a hardware be open source? Yes. Can a chocolate cake be open source? Yes. If you apply these principles to anything that exists in the world, it is open source. Beautiful, isn't it? So why should we use open source? What does it even offer? Well, let's have a look. A lot. Here are just a few examples. As I mentioned, freedom, privacy, a community. Imagine if there's an open source restaurant, the different types of people you will actually meet there. Not going to a 5-star restaurant and just meeting people who are very rich and can afford that, but actually going to a restaurant where you can meet people with different cultures, meet people who live in various areas, and whatnot. Calls for some interesting conversations, right? Open source allows you to communicate with different people. And finally, it's absolutely free. Well, nothing much to explain in this. So these are just a few benefits which make open source so viable for everyone, and yet people keep running away from it. People still favor proprietary things compared to what open source has to offer. And this is what we as a club want to change through this endeavor. So from now, if anyone asks you to pay for things that are not needed for, if anyone tries to steal your data, if anyone tries to breach your privacy, remember where you want to switch to: open source. And this is how open source changes the world. Yes, you didn't choose the thug life, the thug life chose you. Imagine leading a life where everything is free, you have the freedom to do literally whatever you want to, no one is judging you for what you're doing, and you can actually customize everything according to your own needs. Yes, that is what open source is all about. Now that we have a comparatively clearer understanding of open source, let us talk about the internet. What is the internet? Well, you're watching this video over the internet or the World Wide Web. You study and attend your classes to the World Wide Web. Oh, didn't like that example. Let me put it more relatively. You watch memes and access social media through the World Wide Web. In fact, honestly speaking, I can't imagine a minute of my life today without the World Wide Web. I'm always on the internet, be it, chatting with my friends over social media on my phone, or just browsing random YouTube videos, or surfing the documentation of some tech stacks to make something interesting, or on some competitive programming website to code. Every aspect of my life revolves around the internet, from movies to studies to everything. In fact, it's a common saying that the internet is so dependent on how the world works today, or rather how the world is so dependent on the internet today, that even old age people get panic when the internet is down, and you look for the typical computer guy or the IT guy to fix it. So wait, are we really trying to tell you that the internet which we have today is due to open source? Come on, this cannot be true, right? Well, let's move ahead to find out exactly how it works. So, well, what is the internet? All of you might be wondering, right, that this internet is something which is beyond our understanding. It's such a complex thing. We write something and automatically a web page comes. We do this, we do that. Well, what is the internet? The internet is nothing but a set of computers, billions of them, which are connected together. Yes, that's it. It's nothing related to what you were thinking. It's not those weird diagrams which you are having in your head. It's actually something very simple. The internet is just all the computers in the world connected together. Well, now you might be wondering, if they're connected together, at least the connected mechanism might be, very complicated. So how are they connected? Well, before I move on with the answer, because it's something which will shock you, kindly pause the video and write your answers in the comments if you know how all these computers around the world are actually connected. Yes, through wires. So if someone out there was, thinking of some complicated terms and doing some great research out there, it's just through wires. When I heard it for the first time, I also didn't believe any of it, just like this kid. Means this cannot be true, right? Like, all computers in the world are connected through these wires, and that forms the internet. Like, that forms a World Wide Web. Well, how is it possible? I still refuse to believe, right? I need further proof. Well, look at this. This is the world map of all the undersea cables that connect all major data centers across the 6 continents apart from Antarctica. Well, unfortunately, there is no internet connection there apart from satellite connectivity. Yes, your internet requests, your requests for web pages go under the sea millions and thousands of kilometers across the continents. Well, in fact, if you are just typing google.com in Kolkata, India, you never know, your request might just be rerouted to some corner in South America and come back to you in a matter of seconds. That is the power of the internet. All these wires are physically connected across the continents. Imagine the amount of manpower that was required to actually establish this. The privileges that we have today is because of the efforts so many people put in to set them up. So what are these data centers? For India, for instance, these data centers are located in Mumbai, one of them. That belongs to Tata Communications, right? So it's a dingy, tall building in Mumbai, which is actually a data center. So it's like, millions and trillions of gigabytes of data just being exchanged in that data center. It has multiple level of security, things which you can't even imagine. So this is how the internet works. When you send in a request, it actually travels across the world to get fulfilled. Beautiful, isn't it? Now you might have some basic doubts that I have a Wi-Fi router, I don't even connect a wire to my laptop. How does this google.com automatically come in? I don't have a wire at my home. Well, this is because you don't understand how the internet works stepwise, and you will find many complicated diagrams on the internet. So let me just simplify that for you. Look ahead to find out how does the web work. So let's delve into how does the web work in the very first place. A disclaimer, this is not an in-depth study of all the communication protocols and all the hardware and software that is required to make the internet work. Obviously, that machinery is comparatively huge and not in the ambit of this video. The purpose of this video is to showcase the path or the basic overview of what exactly happens when you type in an address in the address bar of your browser. How exactly do you see the google.com and the amazon.in and the facebook.com on your browser screen as soon as you're connected to an internet connection and you type that address there? How does the World Wide Web actually work? So instead of focusing on the overall picture, let's go step by step. Okay, so step 1. You are sitting on your computer. You're apparently connected to an internet connection. Now, what exactly is an internet connection, right? It could either be switching on your mobile data, or you could connect via a LAN wire, or you're actually connected through a Wi-Fi router. Whatever might be the case, there is something called an internet service provider. Now, what is an internet service provider? Internet service provider is basically the name of the agency which claims to give you the internet. So if, let's say, you are connected via Jio, or you're connected via Airtel, or you're connected via Vodafone, these companies or agencies are your internet service providers. So what do? They give you a connect to the internet or to the World Wide Web. That is Through these agencies, your laptop or your computer or your mobile phone gets connected to that vast system called the internet, the diagram of which we saw just a few minutes ago. So this is what the ISPs do. So if you have, let's say, a wired connection or a wireless connection, it does not matter. Once you type in a web, an address to a site, a website, whatever on your web browsers, what it does is it sends that information to the ISP. So it's via your cables or your wireless connections. The address of whatever you are browsing is sent to your ISP. Now, if it's a wireless router, it's sent via waves. If it's a wired connection, it's sent through the wire. Okay. So first step, from your computer through your ISP. So your ISP receives this information. Now, does it receive the direct website google.com? Obviously not. It receives a number. Now, what is the number? The number is the IP address. So what is an IP address? Well, what you can consider it to be it's just like the name suggests. So let's say if I have to identify one particular person, right? I do it via an address, like the house address, the street address, and maybe a pin code at the end to uniquely identify a person. So similarly, an IP address is the address of the computer in which the HTML document, the CSS files, the JS, and all the front-end features for this application are stored. Okay? So whenever I'm typing google.com over here, it converts it to its respective IP address. That is, the IP address is the location of the host computer where google.com is hosted. So fine, your internet service provider takes this information from you. This information is shared via the connection you have through the internet service provider. It could be the mobile data, it could be a Wi-Fi, it could be a wire, as mentioned before. Okay, now step 2. Step 2 is the internet service provider. Through the various overhead cables, you'll find internet cables across the street, in town, everywhere. They send it to a place called the domain name server. Now, what is the domain name server? The domain name server is just a directory, like a telephone directory or a dictionary, or for those who do some coding, a hash map. So what does the domain name server do? It receives the IP address of whatever you are requesting and sees where exactly is it located. So let's say if I have an IP address X, the domain name server will actually tell me which route to follow and in which country exactly is this X located. So if you type google.com and Google's servers are, let's say, in Singapore, the DNS server, the domain name server, will actually tell you or inform the system that, okay, you need to search for this information in this server in Singapore. Okay. So let's just rewind. You type something, you send the address of that through your ISPs to a domain name server where it looks for the host computer, the location of the host computer, the physical location of the host computer. Okay. Step 3. The domain name server then redirects it to the server hosting the website. What is a server? A server is nothing but the host computer where the website is stored. So for example, just like you write an HTML document in your own local machine and store it, right? So similarly, google.com, what is google.com or any other site for that matter? It is a collection of web pages, right? It is essentially some HTML, some CSS, some JavaScript, some backend written in some other language. It's hosted in a server somewhere. So whenever you're requesting google.com to be loaded, you will see that all the HTML, all the CSS, all the JS needed to power up google.com actually get loaded up in your browser. So these files are stored in a server somewhere. So that is the server. It's a computer, a very high capacity computer with very good computational capacity stored somewhere around in the world. Maybe, in your own country, maybe in some other country, maybe in another hemisphere, you never know. Because the time for access is the same. So from the domain name server through these underwater cables, you actually go to the server hosting your website. Fine. So this is where you actually find all the files for your website are stored. And finally, the website is returned to you in the form of packets. We won't get into the details of packets, but just try to understand that if you have a very big load, okay, when you are carrying something huge, you tend to break it up into smaller pieces so that carrying them is easier. And after that, when you get back to your destination, you rearrange those blocks. So this is how, some companies even sell their furniture. They do not sell all the huge parts together. In fact, they give self-assemblable parts so that you can take it home easily and then assemble it yourself. So that is the entire concept of packets. It breaks down the big data into smaller data so that it can go through these wires and the wireless connections easily. So this is an overall picture of how the World Wide Web works for you. As I said, disclaimer again, this is not the complete picture or a detailed picture, but this is just the basic overview so that you actually understand how it works. So, we move to the end of what the internet is and how it works. So if you have any doubts till now in these parts, kindly write to us in the comment section and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And if you're finding this video helpful, do like and subscribe to our channel. Next up, we'll find out that what is the role of open source in all of this? Why is open source involved in whatever we learned till now? So let's find out. Well, considering the role which open source plays in all of this, we need to understand that it's not as simple and small as we think. Because where the role of open source actually lies in the functioning of the internet or the World Wide Web? Yes, everywhere. So in order to understand how exactly open source is the backbone of the World Wide Web, let us delve into how the World Wide Web came into the existence. Courtesy of CERN, which is one of the biggest research organizations in the world, for giving us something which has changed our lives forever, this is how World Wide Web actually came into existence. So let's look at this timeline. In 1980, Tim Berners-Lee, the man famously credited for inventing the World Wide Web in the very first place, conceives of a platform called Enrique along with hypertext. So Enrique was basically a platform where he could share some databases, and therein came the concept of sharing in the very first place. That what if we could share data between computers, between people? Wouldn't it make our lives so much easier? Then after working on various ideas for over 9 years, he conceived the idea of a World Wide Web to connect major scientists. So yes, initially it was not meant for what it is meant today. It was not meant for the common masses, but came up as a concept to connect the scientists. After that, in 1 year, the concepts of hypertext markup language and browsers start to emerge. So HTML, these browsers, the concept that you can have a platform where you can access the internet or a World Wide Web, they started taking shape. And then 1991 is when the concept of collaboration, sharing came in. Collaborators are invited to give their ideas on the web. And finally, in 1993, CERN made World Wide Web a public license. That is, they made it open for collaborators all over the world, irrespective of whether they are scientists or not, irrespective of whether they are common people or not, without caring for who is using it. In short, they made the World Wide Web available for everybody, anywhere, freely. Yes, the World Wide Web was made open source. Imagine if Tim Berners-Lee at that time had thought that, okay, this is some elite concept. Why should I let the common masses use it? Let's just keep it for the scientists, the top-notch scientists across the world. Well, would you be able to see this video right now? No, right? So the entire concept of the web came from it being made open source by CERN. And that is what open source means to the web today. The entire concept is the reason why we are sitting in the comfort of our homes and not losing 1 inch of our work in the pandemic, because we can connect so easily. And this is the beauty of open source. This is how open source changed the world. Well, we are not over yet as we delve into some components. So yes, the web exists because of open source, and obviously the memes too. Further delving into what factions of the internet today are open source, we see that the web servers themselves are open source, with some of the popular web servers having been listed on the screen. That is the Apache web servers, the Nginx web servers, the LightTPD web servers, and Node.js, the local and one of the most sought after web server in the world. All these web servers are open source technologies. All the major websites in the world run on open source web servers. So today the majority of the internet that you're accessing is actually being accessible due to open source. Open source as an alternative to everything, a solution for everything, and web servers are no different. Well, why just web servers? Open source actually governs the internet. Whether it be your browsers, yes, Mozilla Firefox is an open source browser. In fact, most of Google Chrome is also open source, based on Google's open source technology, Chromium. Imagine, you think about how Google is someone who wants your data, this, that, but even its browser is based on open source. You can actually find out the code of Chromium on the internet. You can contribute to it, you can take something out of it and change it in your own way. So yes, browsers are open source, your entry point. After that, internet protocols. What are internet protocols? They are a set of rules which essentially govern the internet. So these rules are again something which are out there in the public domain. You can actually read those rules and maybe try to emulate them and twist them in certain ways. So even that is possible. Tech stacks. So today, most of us in technical colleges want to indulge in some form of development. We are learning various tech stacks. So what are these tech stacks, these tech frameworks? These are nothing but open source code repositories which allow you to easily make websites. So imagine open source is not about you being users. It's also about you being developers. That is the beauty of open source. It allows people to contribute to what it provides to them. So you can learn any tech framework today and build a website in a matter of days. In fact, in a matter of hours. And with increasingly important and faster React frameworks, in a matter of minutes. Virtual machines, the servers where all your data is stored are mostly Linux based, mostly Unix based, because it becomes easier for us to understand these computers. We do not have to pay for the operating systems running over there. So why not use a Linux based virtual machine? So you see, all in all, right from your entry point in your browsers to your communication protocols to how you develop things yourself to the virtual machines to the web servers, everything is based on open source. So why do we use proprietary software? Why do we even have to pay for certain services? Why are we still under the risk of being monitored? It is because most of the hardware that we use today is under the control of nations or companies. So today these undersea wires, right, they have, like countries have various licenses on different lengths of the wire. So they can actually go there and see what data are you passing. So this is where somehow you could say that the current internet which you are using is somehow losing its essence. Day by day, we are having increased concerns about our privacy. Day by day, we are having increased concerns about things being very costly over the internet. It is because of this, that some of the hardware which is being involved in the entire internet ecosystem today has made it difficult for us to keep it entirely open source. So is there an alternative? Can we think of ways and means to make internet completely open source? And well, another very interesting question which comes to my mind, if the web is actually open source, can I build my own internet? Because that's what open source is, right? You have a completely public code. You have everything public, anyone can access it. So if anyone has the knowledge of how it works, can I build it on my own? Well, pause the video for some time, think about it, and write about it in the comment below. Well, very much so. So in fact, if the internet is actually open source, you can actually create an own internet. So as I had said before, that internet is nothing but a connection of computers which can communicate with each other, right? So it's theoretically as well as practically possible for all of us to create our very own internets. So what do we exactly need to create an internet? The first thing are the tools to create an internet, right? So considering how every aspect of the internet can be built on open source softwares and protocols, the existence of a proper hardware is all you need to create your very own internet. Hardware which you can acquire via some community collaborations and whatnot. Also, along with all this, you need the willpower to be free. Yes, where there is a will, there is a way. So buckle up, create a community, and create something even more powerful. So you are telling me that if we have the adequate amount of knowledge, the adequate number of people, the adequate amount of technology at our disposal, we can create our own internet. Then why have people not done it yet? Well, actually, people have. This is the New York City Mesh, which is an independently functioning internet of their own. So on the left, you can see the region which is covered by this internet. Although it's pretty small, but it's a huge leap for us moving to a form of internet which could be much freer, something which is void of domination by certain corporates, etc., etc. And on the right, you can see one piece of antenna which contributes to this internet in the New York City Mesh. So the New York City Mesh is an initiative by some citizens of New York to have their very own internet, and this is what they have created. And this is something which each one of us can create in the long run. Impressive, isn't it? Well, with this, we come to the official end of the very first video of how open source changed the world. We, the GNU Linux Users Group, strongly believe that through open source, through its knowledge, and by exploring further into it, we can actually make the world a better place to live in. Do check out our channel for similar content on open source, especially our open source starter pack, in case you are completely unfamiliar with open source softwares and the Linux kernel based operating systems. You can also check out our channels for various playlists on interviews done with people in the software world, along with some tutorial videos on Git and GitHub and other exciting new avenues. Well, do like our video and subscribe to our channel if you find it insightful. Until then, see you next time. May the source be with you. Thank you so much.